was born. So essentially, it's influenced by the American culture and the Jewish culture also. But my mother likes to cook a lot of vegetables. So that was always a main part of my diet, fruits and vegetables. She used to say, I just remember being like in a doctor's office and she was talking to a woman next to her and she said, oh, my kids live on fruits and vegetables. And being young, I just imagined it as like living on a planet made of fruits and vegetables. So that's a bit of my childhood influence. Also, a lot of it had to do with the Sabbath and holidays, because before on Sabbath you cannot cook because you don't light electricity or fire. So all the food was prepared before Shabbat, the Sabbath, and then on Sabbath we had big meals with friends and family, and so always Friday was a day of cooking and in the kitchen and baking fresh bread, challah. So a lot of it is connected to the Jewish calendar. I remember, I don't have any like memories that something that was, I remember like one time baking bread in the kitchen on Friday, and then me and my sisters were in the kitchen and we were tossing the bread back between us to like knead it. And one time we were at a freshwater spring and just finding like fresh parsley growing wild in nature. Well, I also need to say that since I've left my parents' home, I'm like doing things my own way, a little differently. Me and my husband decided that we really like Shabbat. And so when we stay at our home for the weekend and we don't go to our parents or somewhere else, then we go to the market and we buy a lot of fruits and vegetables, and he carries it all home in a backpack. And then mainly I'm the one in the kitchen. I kind of am a control freak in the kitchen. I don't really let him in so much, but he's more like the sous chef. So my husband, his name is Boaz. And he's originally, his dad is Argentine and his mom is South African. So a lot of his culinary life revolves around those cultures. But he was raised on a kibbutz. His family's not members of kibbutz because his dad was the kibbutz doctor. So he was on the kibbutz until he was 16, and then they moved. So a lot of his food experience comes from the Chadar Ochel, which is the food room where everybody met to eat, but really like nothing to do with kosher at all. You know, if anything, it was kind of looked down upon. So pork is definitely in his repertoire of food, which to me it's strange. And all kinds of seafood. It's, you know, the way it manifests itself in our life is that in our home we keep kosher and we separate the milk and the meat and different dishes. When we were traveling together, you know, he ate whatever seafood he wanted, and I made sure that my food was kosher. I'd either have fish that was kosher or just vegetable dishes. It isn't easy because, you know, you're sitting there and his plate of food looks really good. But I think that he appreciates the fact that I have things in my life that are steady and that are connected to the religion. And I also see him coming towards it in a way. Even though he'll still eat non-kosher food, the Shabbat is also very central to him now and very important to him. Well, the main thing that basically, like, when we decided to get together, then we were fighting a lot about the Shabbat. Because that for me was like a red line that I wanted to keep the Shabbat. It was important for me, and for him it was really, really important to go hiking on Shabbat and things like that. And so the compromise that we made was that we were not going to drive on Shabbat, but that we could drive somewhere and go hiking and be in nature for Shabbat. So that was kind of like when we realized that we can make it work between me and him. About food, I don't know if he feels restricted. And for now, like, everything's fine because I could do what I want and he can do what he wants and we respect each other. I think the major problem is going to come when the kids come. Because I don't really want to raise a child to eat pork because it's just such an essential part in Judaism. And I don't know if it sounds like we're like, oh, I don't need pork and you do, but you know, it's something that we have, and it doesn't even matter if it has a meaning or not. It's a tradition that's been for thousands of years in the Jewish people, and it's still alive. And so I think it's beautiful to connect to that there's like a whole, you know, just a bunch of people who that's what they don't eat, you know. And so I would like to raise my children not to eat pork and to keep kosher. And you know what? I think that he's also slowly coming towards that also. So I don't know. When we go to his house, it could be interesting. It could be a little difficult because, you know, we'll just be having soup and like his dad wants to add like pork, sausage into the soup, and for me it's like, I don't know why, it's a little shocking, and like I can't really come to terms with this. If you want to continue your Jewish lineage, then I do think it's important, that connection with the Jewish food. But there isn't like one Jewish food. When you think about Jewish food, then you think about the laws, or at least for me. Because there's the European Jewish food and the Moroccan Jewish food and the Yemenite Jewish food. So Jewish food to me like is a kosher meal. Lo tevashel gdi b'chalev imo. Do not eat a lamb in its mother's milk. That's the phrase that's actually written in the Bible. And then the sages tell us that means separate milk and meat. We don't eat pork. And we don't eat seafood apart from fish that have scales and fins. That's the main ones. Oh, and for animals, we eat the ones that have split hooves, and that they bring their food up twice, like the cow. It chews its food, and it has two stomachs, so it brings up its food and it chews it again. So those are the categories that categorize a kosher animal. You know, it doesn't necessarily have like an answer to why. I can say that probably because if you're careful with your food, then you're careful with how you treat other people, or you're careful with the way you want to live your life, or you're careful just about cleanliness, like washing your hands before you take bread in Judaism is also a law. So that all leads to, I think the essential meaning of it is to make you a more aware person, a careful person, a considerate person. Everybody picks and chooses, I think. There's nobody who's perfect. There are people who want to keep everything. I wouldn't even say on myself that I want to do everything. I just want to be connected, you know, keep things in my certain way. I think a lot of the laws were meant to keep us separate from everybody else, and that's why the Jewish people are still around after thousands and thousands of years. But it also feels like it's a separation from, you know, maybe interpreted as racist or as elitist. And I'm actually thinking back to other encounters I've had with people recently in Central America, and I think actually people really respect you when you have certain restrictions and you don't just eat everything and do everything, that you think about what you do. So in that sense, I actually think I didn't feel separate when I was sitting with people and I asked what was in the food, or it sometimes can be awkward, but I actually felt like people really respected me for keeping kosher. It's not simple because because I want to be connected to the traditions, and yet I don't want to feel like I'm missing out, or I don't want to be interpreted as racist or elitist. But I don't think that people really think that you're an elitist if you have a certain dietary laws, actually. But I think the laws were originally made so that the Jewish, to promise the continuation of the Jewish people. That's it.